If you want to double your episode downloads, use the social media strategy. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Real Podcasters, a podcast on how to grow and monetize your show. My name is SKYLAR Beitendorf, and it is my mission to help you achieve your podcasting goals. I myself have been doing it for about 4 years now. I have a podcasting business. I do post-production for clients, coaching, all the things podcasting. It's what I do full-time, and I honestly love it. And a while back, a few months ago, I stumbled on something accidentally, and it doubled my latest episode downloads. It was really cool. And I've seen other people do the same mistake I was making before. And I want you to not make the mistake and to have a higher downloaded podcast. So let me tell you what I was doing. I was producing episodes for Utah hustlers. And with this podcast, I would do one episode a week, or I actually did 2 episodes a week. One episode was a solo. The second one was an interview. The interview was the highlight, though. I only posted content from the interview. I would create the episode, interview the person, do the editing, get probably 10, 15, probably more around 10 social media clips, little reels to put on mostly YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And for that week, I would post one a day. So I'd get about 7 reels in, and then I'd move on to the next guest and the next guest. I would always heavily promote the latest episode, because why wouldn't you, right? That's the latest and greatest. And for my last episode, I decided to take a little break with the podcast. So I was like, well, I want this content to last longer because I'm going to be taking a break, and I want the pages to continually look active. And what I did was I scheduled all my posts with a social media tool, which that tool is down in the show notes if you want to use it. It's called Metricool. And so the way I scheduled it was I scheduled 2 reels for the first week, maybe 3. I can't remember exactly, but I did one the day it came out, one a couple days later, another one a couple days later. And then I did one the next week, one the next week, one 2 weeks later, one 2 weeks later, one 3 weeks later, one a month later, one a month later. So I started to, I produced more content when it was out and it was hot and live, but I continued to release content from it months and months later, even though that wasn't necessarily supposed to be like the latest episode, right? And what I started noticing is, hey, this was getting a lot more downloads over this period of time. It had more downloads than any episode I ever did. And my guest did not have the biggest following out of all my guests. There were a lot that had way more followers than that last guest. And the conclusion I came to is it was because I was promoting it over a longer period of time. And as I started looking around, I was like, okay, what are other podcasters doing? I looked at their social media accounts and I realized they are doing this exact same thing. They're not just posting content about that guest the week it's out. They're posting content far down the road, months, even a year later. Sometimes I'd see podcasters posting reels about the episode they did 12 months before. So it got me thinking, it's like, this should be done every single episode. And so if you think about it, the day you release an episode, you're going to produce some content. But a few months later, that exact guest is going to have new followers, or maybe just followers that are now active when you actually post the content. And so they're going to see it then. You want to continue to promote that episode to their new followers months and months later, because they may have missed it the first time you posted a reel. They may have missed it the second time. They may have missed it the third time, or they just weren't a follower then. And so if you're posting it 6 months later, people are going to be like, oh, wait, I didn't realize that person was a guest on this podcast. I'm going to go listen. Or they're like, oh yeah, I saw that forever ago. Were they a guest again? Is this from the other one? I've been wanting to listen to that. Now I finally have time to go and listen to a podcast episode. Now I'll go listen to it. So the benefits of continuing to post months later, you're going to get way more downloads from it because of how the social media audiences are. For most audiences, less than about 20%, less than 15, sometimes 10 or 5% actually see the posts that they post or the stories they share. Because if a lot of people are following like hundreds and sometimes thousands of accounts. And so for your content that they share to come up front and center every single time, pretty low. So the more you share, the higher likelihood you're going to have more and more people that didn't see the first one. And even if they did, you're reminding them that they were on this podcast and they're continuing to see it months later. So it feels like a bigger deal than something that just comes and goes and is no longer relevant. If you continue to post about it months later, it feels like a much bigger deal. It feels like something that, hey, maybe I should actually see what this is about because they keep getting reminded about it. But if it's a week or 2 weeks that they see content and then it's just gone forever, it's like, I was not too worried about it anyway. It takes 7 interactions to sell someone. And that's what you're doing with your clips is you're selling their audience your podcast. And so they need to see it 7, 10 times before they're going to click play. So you want to spread that out, not overwhelm them. That's another thing I found is when I would post that much content in a week, one every single day, I'd actually overwhelm my guests and they stopped sharing because it was just too much. Their entire feed would have been them on my podcast instead of the things that they want to promote. But if it's once a week or every couple weeks, they're like, okay, just put it in here, in there. And so it shows all of them, but it also highlights them on your show. That is the strategy I stumbled upon. That's what I'm seeing other people, other podcasters doing to get more downloads. It actually like tripled or quadrupled the average number of downloads for that episode than the previous ones, especially to how big the audience was. And so I want you to give that a shot. If you have past episodes, go create clips from that and continue to share it, continue to tag your old guests in those episodes. I'm going to guarantee you that they're going to be delighted for the extra content. You're going to share it and your episode downloads are going to skyrocket just from changing this one thing about how frequently and how long you're posting about your episodes. If this episode was helpful to you, make sure to follow it on your podcasting listening app because I have an even better episode coming soon and I don't want you to miss it. So when you subscribe, make sure to turn the notifications on. So that way your phone will tell you when the next episode drops.